Thanks for listening to the Nice Podcast. I am available to deliver keynote presentations and workshops for your company or for your conference. Reach out to me, DaveDelaneySpeaks.com, or email me and we can talk. Now on with the show.
Every time that that finances came up, the CEO would back up just a little bit, like not a whole step back, but just he would like settle back a little bit, and you kind of, when you standing up, but you kind of, you relax a little bit and you back up a little bit. When somebody does that lets you know, it suggests, it indicates, it doesn't mean for sure.
Yeah.
They're not sure about the information they're giving you. So you have to decide whether the information they're giving you is bad information and they know it, or is it they just don't know, or did they get this information from their financial person and that person knows everything, and so you need to talk to that person.
Nice.
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 Nice. Nice.
Nice.
Nice.
Nice with Dave Delaney.
I thought it'd be fun to start today with a little story that I thought I would share with you. There is a wonderful state park in Nashville called Radnor Lake. It's gorgeous. If you know the area, you might be familiar. And of course, it's fall, which makes it even better. And there are actually multiple parks around Nashville and greenways. I'm pretty lucky to live here. Anyway, I decided to go for a hike a couple of weekends ago. The weather was just perfect. And went out on my own and did this. My kids are both teenagers and had things going on, and my wife was out of town. So decided, I'll just go take a little hike. Now, as I was walking through the forest, I saw other parents walking with their young children. And I started feeling down, started feeling nostalgic and kind of sad that my kids are teenagers now. And if you have teenagers or you've had teenagers, they're on their own now, kind of doing their thing. And the last thing they really want to do typically is to do that. And that's cool. I get it. So I was walking along and I was feeling kind of not depressed, but certainly kind of sad about it. And I stopped myself midway and thought, I spent time taking my kids on hikes in the woods here in this very park many times when they were little, both with the kids, just the three of us, or with my wife, Heather, even with my mom visiting from Toronto. And it got me thinking that we had great experiences walking through the woods, and that my kids, they might be in the back of their minds, but they have memories there of doing that with me. I didn't neglect them. I didn't choose not to spend time with them. And I would like to add that both of my kids are awesome kids. They really are cool people and good people. And I say that because I'm really proud of them and the people they've become and the people they're becoming. And so I turned it around in my head. Instead of, kind of meandering through the woods, feeling kind of bummed out, I turned it around and I thought, no, actually, you know what? This is a moment to celebrate. This is a moment of joy that I should be feeling happy that we had those times walking in the woods and that we had great experiences together and that they've turned out to be great kids. And I share this with you because I want you as a leader to slow down a bit and enjoy your life and enjoy your family and enjoy your people, the people that you work with. So I'm not turning this around into some sales pitch for Futureforth, nothing like that. I just wanted to share this little story with you before I jump into the episode today. And I've got a great one, by the way. I'm interviewing Scott Rouse, who is a world famous body language expert, somebody who I think you are going to really enjoy. Scott is awesome. I interviewed him before on a former podcast a few million years ago. And we've actually shared the stage at, I think, multiple events, speaking engagements and things like that. So Scott is super cool. You're really going to get a lot from this conversation all about using body language. So with that, get ready to learn a lot and you'll get more right after this. Welcome to the Nice Podcast, a podcast all about communication, collaboration, and becoming better leaders. I'm your host with the most, or something like that, Dave Delaney. I've got the amazing body language expert, awesome, cool guy, person I really admire and respect a lot, Mr. Scott Rouse. How are you, Scott?
Hey, I'm good, Dave. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. What's the nicest thing someone has done for you recently?
The nicest thing someone's done for me recently. There's so many. Everybody's always so nice to me for some reason. What was it? I think because we're still trying to stay indoors as much as possible.
Yeah.
So this sounds so corny, but my wife, she brings me coffee in the morning, because we get up, we try to spend the first hour hanging out and talking and everything in the morning. And then she got up this morning and what I have for breakfast is, it's kind of odd to put together. It's toast, but it's rye bread, but it's toast.
Yeah. So
you toast that and put on peanut butter, raisins, and just a little bit of honey.
Oh,
and
man.
She brought me that. So that was nice. It's so corny sounding. I can't stand it. But so that was cool. That was really nice.
That's very nice. That just made me hungry. That's a great way to, do you think she'd bring me some?
Hang on a second. Sweetie. Hey, sweetie pie. Let me see. I'm sure she would. I'll be nice to her.
There you go. Hey now. No, I've been really looking forward to talking to you. I know we have had some great experiences working together in the past, speaking, sharing stages at events and things like that. And when I tell people about, I often in my presentations and in my training as well, because I speak a lot about communication and the NICE method, of course. Mm-hmm. I talk about body language with the full caveat that I'm not an expert, but I know one. And so I share a few tips on body language in my presentations, but I always say, but my buddy Scott is he's the master at this. And you really are. I mean, you're someone that, professionals call in, law enforcement call in, others call in to bring to different settings and different situations, sometimes quite high stakes situations to read body language. Do you want to talk a little about that?
Yeah. I work with all kinds of people. It's mostly training is the thing I like the most because you train, for example, if you train the military, you get to meet the most awesome people in the whole wide world because you think, it's military people. It's certainly these cats, man, are so smart. Some of them, it's unbelievable. And when it comes to law enforcement, you've got the same thing. You've got detectives. Those guys are into figuring things out. So that, for some reason, me and that headspace go together really well. Trying to figure out what the, not just who killed somebody or who shot somebody or all that, but why. So getting to the why is really important. So it depends on whether we're talking about body language that I'm training or we're doing interrogation, which body language is a part of that for most people who are interrogators. For some it isn't. It's just an analytical situation. But to take the entire thing into consideration, I always make sure I add body language to that when I'm training for those.
Yeah.
So
do you ever when we first met and we started working together a little bit here and there, we were doing stuff at the Entrepreneur Center here in Nashville, working with some startups and some VCs in town. Talk a little bit about how, because a lot of my audience are technology leaders working in or running fast growing technology companies. Tell me a little bit about how you can use body language to win over pitching VCs, or not necessarily win over, but certainly help your chances from the stuff that you've seen, or maybe some mistakes that you've seen in presentations that way.
Okay. Well, as you know, I've trained thousands of startups, and everyone that I've trained for pitching, every one of them have been funded. Every one of them, to the man, woman, child, whatever it is, they've all been funded. And not from the first pitch, but as you go through it, there are several pitches you do, but they've all been funded up to this day. And I still train them when I get a chance. I think I'm doing 3 right now. But the key is most people are under the impression you want to get someone, you want to do a pitch where they go like it's Shark Tank, where they go, yes, I'll invest in it.
Right.
Well, what you want to get them to invest, but what you want to get them to do, and I think this is key, you want them to want to help you. So, and there's a path you can go down to get someone in the headspace to want to help you instead of saying, okay, I'll fund this. Here we go. If you have a group of angel investors and let's say you talk them into funding you for something, your pitch is good and all that, but you get to talking with them and you persuade them to go into to invest in you. Then you have about every day, you have 3 or 4 phone calls. How's it looking? What's money doing? What's going on over there? What's going to happen next? Have you done this? Have you done that? What about this? What can I do to do this? What do I need to do? But when you have a group of people who want to help you, you get one phone call every couple of days, and it's like, hey, man, how's it going? What do you need? Is there anything you need from us? How can we help you? What do you need? Because you want to come from that space of them wanting to help you, which is key. And then making sure that most investors, a lot of the VCs, they'll be looking at these people and just part of it will be, are they full of it or not? And they'll start believing. If it starts sounding okay, they'll believe the person is honest and into it and there for the reason they say they're there. But there are some keys, I think you probably know, of some of the situations I flipped out of the Entrepreneur Center where the person wasn't who they weren't who they said they were and weren't there for the reasons they said they were there for. So when you have VCs who are putting in a huge amount of money in something,
Oh yeah,
you've got to make sure. You got to make sure the person you're giving the money is not only do they want to do it and have passion for it, can they make it happen? And if it goes sideways on them, are they going to run and take your money, or are they there just to take your money, or do they really believe this thing can happen? So a lot of it is training the VCs as well. But a lot of times what will happen is I'll go and I'll train a couple of them from a group, and then they'll say, you know what we need? Why don't you just come in and sit down and watch the pitches with us? So I did the same thing I did at the EC when I would help Michael vet those entrepreneurs coming in. I do that for companies now. Remember we'd sit around in the room, we'd watch them, and then Michael would just tear them up.
Right.
And then, but so it's sort of I wouldn't tear somebody up if I was being hired to, because that's not what I'd be there for.
Yeah.
But to kind of point out the things to let them know this person may not be confident with what they're doing. Their teammates or just somebody they had come in the last couple of weeks, and they may say they've been there for a long time. And there's specific things you can see that will tell you all those things. I can go on forever about all that.
What are some of those things that you can see?
Well, a good example would be one time we were doing a thing at Vanderbilt, and it was I can't remember why we were there, or who was there for. It might have been David First, might have had a thing there, and so we were watching. That's what it was. We were judging pitches. That's what it was. Okay, I remember now. I got it. Judging pitches. And as the guy went through his here's what's going to happen, and now our financial guy will talk about this, and so the financial guy would say something, and then they'd go back to the CEO, the main guy, and every time that that finances came up, the CEO would back up just a little bit, like not a whole step back, but just he would like settle back a little bit, and you kind of when you're standing up, but you kind of you relax a little bit and you back up a little bit. When somebody does that lets you know, it suggests, it indicates, it doesn't mean for sure.
Yeah.
They're not sure about the information they're giving you. So you have to decide whether the information they're giving you is bad information and they know it, or is it they just don't know, or did they get this information from their financial person and that person knows everything, and so you need to talk to that person. And then once you decide if you need to talk to that person, when you do, what are they doing that lets you know that they're being honest with you and letting you know the things they actually do know. They're not making things up. And there's specific things you can see that someone's making. I hate to say making something up, but you'll get in your bullshit a little bit to get past some things you don't know without saying, hang on a minute, I don't know, but I'm going to get back to you, which is the most important thing you can do as an entrepreneur. When somebody asks you a question you don't know, you don't fake it till you make it. That's fraud.
Right.
You just say, hang on a minute. Let me, I got to get back to you on that. You don't want to be, because if you don't say that, if you don't do that, then they're going to say, hey, man, this isn't true if they already know. A lot of times these guys, what I train VCs to do are ask questions they already know the answers to. That way you can see how that person acts when they're telling the truth or if they're not being honest with you. So if I'm not there, they'll be able to spot these things. It takes a little while to train you to see these things in that situation. But once you know what they are, boy, they stand out like they're big red flags. And they're not always spot on. You can't say every time. There are no absolutes in body language. So you can't say they scratch their nose, that means they're lying. Or they cross their arms, they're not into what I have to say. Or they broke eye contact when telling me something, so I know that's a lie. Those all mean nothing whatsoever. Right. Very little. But people are under the impression they mean a whole lot. So there's just a million things you can do and say and show to let you know someone is not being honest with you or doesn't have all the information they need.
And I like that approach to it. It's almost like the old polygraph scenes that you at least see in the movies when they ask like a couple, leading questions that they know the answers to just to test the polygraph and to make sure it's actually working correctly. So in a similar sort of way, that's great. A great tip to, in that sort of setting to ask a question that you already know the answer to see how they respond.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You ask several, not just one or two. You ask, as you go through, you ask, you do that. Same thing in interrogation. It's basically taking interrogation skills and putting those in the startup world. So it's when you look at what I train VCs and entrepreneurs too, and it's parallel to what goes on in interrogation. It's just a different direction with it, or although it runs parallel, it's a different execution of those skills, I guess you'd say. There's this
stat that I love from the Society of Human Resources, SHRM, that it costs on average about 6 to 9 months of an employee's salary to replace him or her. So for an employee making like $60,000, that comes out to roughly $30,000 to $45,000 in recruiting and retraining costs. And so not just in a VC sort of setting, but also in a management or leadership role when you're hiring a new employee and during that interview process at the very beginning, at least, being mindful of, are there questions that you recommend sort of asking in that kind of setting? Or
one of my favorites is there anything you haven't told me that I need to know about? Toward the end, is there anything you've told me that I need to know about? And you don't blink, you don't look away, you just keep looking at them because they don't know if you know that or not. And there's a way to set that up so when you get to the end of it, and when you let that go, a lot of times they'll tell you, what haven't you told me? But you say it, and there's different approaches to that. You have to take into consideration what's gone up to that point, what kind of person it is. So but once you get into that, you'll know how to ask the questions about what haven't you told me that you think I might need to know.
And does that apply? I would imagine that applies in most different settings.
Oh, you can. You ask it to anybody, anytime you get a chance. What else do I need to know about this you haven't told me?
Yeah. Interesting.
And that opens up. That's such an open-ended question about, they could tell you, and sometimes they'll start telling you anything, again, something from interrogation to that. And it's some of the things you never ask. If you ask them like that, you'll get so much more information that you never think you'd get. There's so many ways to get more information from someone.
I also like the technique of being silent and allowing the person to do additional talking.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Most people are under the impression, let's talk about eye contact with that. Because most people when they ask someone a question, they think that when that person, if they break eye contact, they go, oh, that person's lying. Well, what we know now from all the research that shows us that's not true. And what happens is the person who breaks eye contact with you, they're probably just thinking about the answer. Right. And trying to get their answer together, and they're not looking up and to the left or down to the left, whatever that crap is. They say, I'm looking in a specific direction to get this part of my brain or that part of my brain. So what they're doing is just, as everyone does, they'll just maybe look down to the left, look to the right, wherever it is their little home for looking is, as they think. Now, the person who's giving you an answer that may not be true is that person who will keep eye contact with you almost so it's uncomfortable, because we know that most people, since they think if you break eye contact, it means you're lying. They think you'll think it means they're lying. They'll want to keep eye contact with you. And another thing would be is to watch their blink rate, because most people think when somebody's lying to you, their blink rate goes through the roof. Not when they're looking at you, because your brain has to do three things when you tell a lie. It has to keep you from telling the lie. It has to make up the lie, and then it has to deliver the lie. And during all that, your eyes they'll stay focused on that person to make sure that person believes them, because that the story they're telling. Because when you deliver the lie, that's where all the action is. So if you ask someone a question, you say, so was that? I don't know, let's put it in an interrogation situation. Was that you in the let's see, did you take the earrings out of the office?
Yeah.
And they say, no, I wouldn't. It wasn't me. And you just keep looking at them. Then they'll add what are called qualifiers usually, because I couldn't go in there because of this, or I was doing this. I would never. They'll start adding things to it. So those are the things you want to listen for when you ask a question, and you just wait, just pause. If they're uncomfortable, they'll say, "What are you doing? You know what? This is getting to be weird." If not, they're focused on their answer so hard to be true, they'll start adding these qualifiers to it. But if they say, "Hey, what are you doing, man? This is weird," then, most likely you've got somebody who's okay. Most likely, you can't tell for sure. None of this is 100%.
Yeah. What's the sort of some tips on kind of in a way, sort of reverse body language in the sense that you want to make someone feel more comfortable? So let's say you're speaking to a team member. Maybe you've got maybe you've got something critical you've got to go over with someone, to make them feel more comfortable.
Okay. Well, at that point, most people, when you speak with them, they're trying to think of what they're going to say next during the conversation. So one of the keys is this: as you talk to somebody, you want I'm not saying their brain's going to for sure think that they're the one talking, but the idea is this: you tilt your hearing, the ear you usually listen with when somebody's talking. You tilt that one ear, you tilt your head sideways a little bit toward that person as you're listening. Do that while you're talking. A lot of times people use what are called illustrators, where that's when your hands come up and move while you're talking, and they usually go out. And those things emphasize specific words or phrases as you say them. Each word is this. And so when I was saying that, then I would have my hand come out like, and point or hit the desk or just move my hand. So what you want to do, and those usually go outward, but what you want to do is pay attention to your illustrators. And as you're illustrating, you illustrate toward yourself, almost like you're trying to draw information out of that person. That gives them what they're used to seeing during that. If your head is tilted toward them and your eyebrows are up and you sort of look like you're pulling information out of them, that there's a part of their brain that goes, I don't need to think about what I'm going to say because this person is listening to me. I know what this looks like. It's not in the front of your brain. It doesn't cross your mind. But subconsciously, that's what's going on. And if I need to tell somebody something, I got a lot I got to talk about, and I want them to be quiet. And that's usually if they're in trouble for something. That's what I do. And that's what I train CEOs to do. That's what I train entrepreneurs to do, startups, VCs, everyone that is giving someone information, talk show hosts, news people. If you're trying to give them information, you want them to listen. Look like you're the one listening as you give them the information. That's one of the keys that I always use.
Yeah, that's great. So what are some common things that you see in this sort of VC, CEO sort of world? What are some common things that you're advising them on or you're teaching them to do or not to do?
Well, I like to teach them to pay attention. A lot of times CEOs, they'll, depending on, let's say if you're in their office, they'll be slunk back in their chair, all hunched down with their hands in front of their face almost, up in the steepling position, and they'll say, and they want to give off this air of, I'm the person in power. Those are tough people to work with. Yeah. So, and sometimes they don't realize they're doing it. They're just used to doing it. So I always say, make sure your body language is quote unquote open. Most people are under the impression that crossed arms mean the person isn't interested in what you have to say. That's not true. Most of the time it means that they're more comfortable that way. It may be cold in there, or they're just used to doing that. And that's why when they're thinking, they'll cross their arms and put their hand up on their mouth, that kind of thing. So that's totally fine. However, most people think that it means you're not into what they have to say. So try not to cross your arms. Try to have open body language. Keep your arms, don't have them tight to your side. Keep them out a little bit as you're while you're sitting down. And sit on the edge of not on the edge of the chair, but scoot forward a little bit as you're talking to them. Look interested in what they're saying, and do that little trick I told you about, how to get your head leaned to the side just a little bit so it looks like you're listening as you're talking. There are a lot of things you can do. And point your feet toward them as you're talking to them. Mm-hmm. They don't know this consciously, but there's something that lets you know if somebody's feet are pointed toward the door, and we know this now, that's where they're thinking about. Where their feet are pointing, that's where their head is. If you're talking in a group of people and the person you're talking to, their feet are pointed toward the person next to you or two people over, but they're looking at you, the person they want to talk to or they're interested in is that other person. So cut your speech short there as you're talking with them. Let them get on with the other thing. Or if they come into your office and and you say, "Come here, let me ask you something." You're talking to them, but their feet are still pointed toward the door. They're in a hurry. Let them go. Say, "Hey, okay, I can tell you in a hurry. I'll ask you about this later." And they won't say, "No. Go ahead and ask you." Say, "Okay, thanks, man," and they'll leave.
Right.
Things like that. Because there are thousands of little things you can use and do.
Well, and I love too that, like, as you said, and as you say in your book, which I did want to mention too, about it. There's no absolutes in body language, but when you combine, like, if somebody has their arms crossed and they're talking to you, okay, yeah, maybe they're cold, so give them the benefit of the doubt there. Yeah. But if their feet are pointed away from you and their arms are wrapped up, and they're like, you could kind of combine these possibly to make a conclusion that way.
Yeah, people will see, since there are no absolutes, and by that I mean there's not one body language cue you'll see that says, this person's lying or they're telling the truth. There are none. Those don't exist. What you look for are groups and clusters of behavior that let you know that person is uncomfortable. The first thing you're looking for when you are looking at body language, the first thing you've got to decide is, are these body language cues you're seeing, are they cultural or are they limbic? In other words, is it something that happens in their culture or is it something their brain is doing? So when you see two or three things that would let you know they're uncomfortable, those are called adapters. Those are anything you see the person doing, any repetitive behavior, like jiggling their leg or rubbing their hand, or if they've got their arms crossed, they've got one of their hands is massaging an arm over there, or they're chewing on the side of their mouth or pushing on their face a little bit as you're talking. Those are the things that let the person get rid of that built-up stress, energy, or tension. So when you start seeing, if you see one or two of those, then you've got somebody who there's an issue with what you're talking about. They don't agree with it, or they're really excited about it. A lot of times you can't tell. You'll have, depending on the situation you're in, you'll have people say, "When that happens, they're not into what you have to say, or they think you're lying."
Right.
Don't ever listen to that. It's all that people who say that get on my lap. I did my whole TEDx talk, as you know, was done about seeing things. What most people think about body language isn't true. Yeah. So you're looking for groups of cues to let you know what's happening.
And I love the book, by the way. Like it's called "Understanding Body Language: How to Decode Nonverbal Communication in Life, Love, and Work." And it's a fantastic book because you break it down in different scenarios, that life, love, and work. So like whether it's dating or whether it's, a work related thing or there's a bunch of different examples in it.
The thing is, those people, some of those people in that book, they just changed them to different people. Sometimes it was a woman they changed it to a man, and sometimes it was a man they changed it into a woman. Yeah. It was, so there are several people in there that from the EC that I took pictures of during.
Oh, no kidding.
When they were, when they were pitching stuff that are in there. But I would send them the pictures first and go, "Hey, you're gonna." And I was like, "Yeah, you're gonna be in this book." And they're like, "Oh, well, that's awesome. Yeah, you can use that." And then the drawings would come back. The first drawings would look just like them, but when the finals came in, they're like, "Oh, we've changed this to this and this." And I was like, "Oh no!" Right? I didn't complain because he did such a great job with it. And that's one of the main comments I get is how much everybody, they're like, "I really like those illustrations in there." Yeah, he nailed that stuff. Yeah, and I corrected one. He said, any corrections on this? And it was something about an arm. I don't even remember what it was, but everything he nailed, man, right on the money.
Yeah,
so I was really surprised.
And you include like some celebrities like Bill Clinton and what's his face here? I always mix up his name. Not Jimmy Kimmel, the other guy.
Oh yeah.
But it's
talk show.
Talk show host, and it's really it's a great book and one that I think everybody should definitely pick up, just because, as I said, and as you're explaining, I mean, one thing that can be overwhelming when you're trying to interpret or think about body language, after listening to this podcast right now, you might have a meeting and you might think, okay, well, how am I gonna apply all this stuff? And you might feel a little overwhelmed just because, okay, so, Sheila's got her arms crossed and her feet are pointing towards the door, she's the worst. Right. But what's interesting in the book is you do kind of lay out different scenarios and sort of that combination. Again, not exacts here, but as you said, like when you kind of combine these different signs, it can be helpful to help interpret, what somebody is saying.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah. So what's a problem that you find that's common in business communication these days in general? It doesn't have to be body language, but what are some things that you're seeing in your work?
People who say they understand something they don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Dr. Phil calls that CEO-itis. It's someone that you'll say, you've heard of so-and-so. Yeah. Okay. Treat it like that. And let's move forward on this, that. That's a big problem I see. And people, if you knew what to look for in that person and say, oh, I see a little bit of doubt with that person, then you can go, are you sure? It's cool if you can say, look, it's cool if you don't. I'll explain it to you. It's really easy. Most of the time they go, okay, I don't know. Because they want to act like they know. They want you to think they're on top of it all. And because they aren't, it could cost you time, it could cost you a lot of money. Mm-hmm. Depends on the situation. That's the one I see the most. So a lot of people ask me, how can I tell if someone is just saying that? If they're saying they do and they don't, there are a couple of things you can look for. That the question, if you say, do you know what I'm talking about? You know what the so-and-so is? And they go, yeah. They answer a little bit in an odd form because your brain has to do those three things we talked about earlier. It's got to stop you from telling the truth. It's got to create your story, create the lie, then deliver the lie. Mm. And most of the time, the volume on that answer will be a little bit less, volume-wise will be a little lower than they've been talking up to that point. He's like, yeah, it'll sound out of place, and that's the first thing. And so it's okay to go, seriously, do you know what this is? Because if you don't, I'll tell you. It's really, just let me know. And they go, yeah, I don't know. I just didn't want to look. And you say, I totally get it. I used to be like that too. If you want to clean it up and not make that person feel, weird, or feel bad about it. See, that's totally cool, man. I get that. And then explain what it is. That's the biggest problem I see, or a large problem I see a lot of times, besides not listening.
Right. So, and so how can you tell when someone's not really listening to you?
You just ask them a question right after. Do you know what I mean? You go, oh, yeah. What did I just say? What was I talking about? And then they'll say, I don't know. You don't have to call them out on it and say, geez, what was I just talking about? Yeah. I do that a lot. And that lets you know if the person is listening or not.
When I talk about listening skills in the ROI of NICE, in that presentation and training, and in the NICE method, I teach people to repeat the information that you receive. So what you're saying is blah 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 blah, and by repeating that information, it makes sure that you actually heard it correctly. First of all, so let's say it's your boss giving you this information, then your boss feels, more trust in you. Dave's got it because he just repeated it verbatim, so he understands the task. Right. And then also because I've repeated it out loud, it helps my brain go, oh, this is probably important. Right. Because I verbally repeated it.
Right. And one thing, and here's a little something for you. If you'll repeat the last 3 to 5 words someone says when they're giving you information, then that will help them. That will let them know not only that you're listening, but it makes them feel important as you're doing that. Another thing is if you take notes when somebody's talking, nothing makes you feel more important than somebody's writing down what you're saying. Right. You could be drawing, a mouse. You could tell what whatever. But if you make it look like you're writing stuff down while they're talking, man, that makes them focus more on you and think, they think I'm important. They're writing it down.
Unless you're taking notes on your phone. Don't do that.
Exactly. Oh yeah, that's horrible. First time I see, you know how that is. You'll be
yeah.
speaking somewhere, you see everybody down their phone, you're like, dang it. Then you go, geez, dude, this thing's, this is doing good on Twitter. Afterwards, you go, oh, okay, gosh, I get it. I was tweeting a thing. Oh, okay, cool.
Right.
Or taking notes.
Yes. Yeah. No, I like that idea though of actually, grabbing a pad of paper and a pen and actually like sketching down some notes is definitely a good way to handle that for sure. You mentioned Dr. Phil
Sketching.
there. Yeah, sketching. Yeah. You mentioned Dr. Phil. Tell me about, so you were on the show. Is that right? You were a guest?
Oh yeah. Been on several. Yeah, I've got a couple of them that are still in the can, as they say in the TV business. That'll be out, I think, this month in November anyway, and there'll be some in December as well. But yeah, so I've done several shows with him. I actually got to co-host one with him, which was fun. And they're all dealing with somebody who did something they shouldn't have done, and it's in question whether they did it or not. So I'm part of this thing called the behavior panel. And it's me and my three buddies, and when COVID hit, we all were getting on Zoom and talking about goofy stuff we were seeing in the news. Some people's body language. I think this guy's full of it. Here's why. Here's that. And so then we just said, well, why don't we just start videoing this and we'll put it on YouTube once in a while. We'll put it on all of our pages and we'll have a thing. Yeah. Okay, great. So we did one and we got like 1 million views on it. We're like, oh, we need to do another one. So we did another one. I think we got 2 million on that. So we started doing them. So we became the behavior panel. And this is I think we've done over 100 shows now.
Yeah.
We started right after fairly soon after the lockdown happened. And that's how Dr. Phil found us. He emailed and said, hey, listen, I want to talk to you. And we're like, who is this? And it really was him. It was one of those things.
Yeah.
So he had to have his assistant call and say, hey, no, it is him. We're like, oh, okay, great. So that's how we ended up meeting him. Great guy, though,
That's super cool. Actually, I was just listening to a podcast recently and Justin Bateman was on and he was asked about like how he would, like how you would market yourself as an actor these days. Because the whole landscape has changed, especially since he started when he was a kid. And he was talking about like YouTube and TikTok, like that's how you get discovered now. And you're an example of this. I'm going to, by the way, which episode's your favorite one on YouTube? Because I'm going to include a link to that in the show notes.
I don't know. Any of the last ones we've done.
Most recent ones?
At all. Yeah, let me take a look real quick and see what we got.
Yeah.
We do them like the day before they come out, so it's a real. Let me turn the volume down on this. That's what we got on there.
I'll definitely include a link so folks can.
Just go to thebehaviorpanel.com. If you make that the link, they'll go right to our YouTube page. That's where it goes.
Go. Okay, cool.
So, but I don't know. There are a couple that I didn't like, I guess. But we did. I know it's a good one. It's there's a guy named Don Wells, and his daughter Summer is missing, and he's from Tennessee. He's from Kingston, Tennessee. Yeah. And he called me. We did a thing on them. Their news there did them. There's an Amber Alert, and the little daughter's missing. Still hadn't been found. And I got a call from this guy, and he's like, I want to talk to you all. I'm like, okay, what do you want to talk about? Because I knew exactly who he was. I knew everything because we'd done the story. We'd done one of our things on it.
Right.
And he said, well, I want to talk to you about my missing child. And I said, all right, well, we'll come out there. He said, no. I just want you to come out here. I said, well, it's going to be all four of us or I'm not coming. He said, well, we can't do that. So I talked to him some more, and then he finally said, okay, well, Greg can come. So Greg and I went to Kingston and talked to him. And when there's a video of just that, of just us. It's not an interrogation. It's more of an interview than anything. Mm-hmm. And we're talking to him about his missing daughter. And that apparently has helped a lot with the situation. That's what I'll tell you. That's all I'll tell you. But yeah, so it's the Don Wells exclusive interview, it says. Okay. So that's the one. It's just Greg and I talking to him about. But you can see all and then we did one after that about the body language we saw in that interview. So we break down what you see in that interview, then we break it down in the next video. All four of us do. So that might have been my favorite so far because we got to get right up next to the person. It's like an interrogation when you're right next to the person who's in trouble. So
and you like the I would imagine the conversations you have. So I often like when I'm presenting and I'm talking about the work that you do, I often joke that like, and folks, it's so difficult to have a conversation with Scott in person because I don't know, like, oh crap, my toes aren't facing him and my arms are crossed and I'm not looking right at him. And I'm like, oh my God. So like, as I'm talking to you in person, I'm like, oh God, I got to make sure I'm like doing everything. So how do the four of you communicate with one another? That's got to be crazy.
Well, no,
Mark's not listening.
Yeah. Well, you can see that, but it's like normal. We don't really call each other out on it. But if one of us thinks the other one's full of it, or a lot of times for about an hour before we do these shows, we'll goof around. And just talk for about an hour. Then we'll do our show. Then we'll stop and talk for another hour. Yeah. So on there is where we can see who's doing what and really pay attention. Because you can see when if somebody's just going on and on about something, you can see us all, the other three, just getting bored out of our skulls. But what the person is talking about is interesting, but we already know what they're talking about. So it's like, geez, can it, dude? So, put a lid on it. It's just, but, that's mostly what we look for, I think, each other's boredom, because we're not going to really bullshit each other.
Right.
Kind of tough.
So tell me a little bit about, and you talked about how you're doing this sort of remotely and how we're all communicating a lot these days, or trying to communicate the best we can via Zoom and all that. So do you have any tips for both reading who you're speaking with, but also communicating effectively virtually?
Yeah, since all we can really see is like your chest and your head. Yeah. If you can use your hands while you're communicating, like those illustrators I was talking about earlier, don't make them big and huge, but don't be afraid to use your hands and show them, because that lets them feel like they're not just looking at a screen after a while, So it's it's the classics. Just make sure you're looking. Most people are looking at themselves during all this. They'll look at the screen. They'll be looking at themselves. So to see how they look. So they're trying to give their best look at the same time. And they're really not paying attention to the other person, what the expressions that person's making. Do they understand what you're talking about? Are they into what you're talking about? Do you need to move on to something else? Do you need to ask them more questions about specific subjects you're talking about? So depending on the type of meeting you're on for Zoom, is this something where you're just getting interviewed like you and I are doing here, or is it a meeting where you're trying to find out what's going on? You want to always have that. You don't want to have your camera really low so you're looking down at them. You don't want to have it too high so they're looking way down at you. You don't want to be too far away from it. And get a microphone, for God's sake. Most people don't have them, and you hear the whole room. They talk real loud. It's real. You hear the whole room, the delay from the room and the room sound is just, oh, gosh.
It's like they're in a tin can.
Yeah, but there's some mics you can get. They're like $50 or $30. The one I got, let's see, it's this one down here. That right now I'm using the Shure, but I got this thing called the Insignia. And it's just a little bullet looking mic, and it was like $30 because there were no mics when once everybody started getting on Zoom. I was like, I better go down there and get a mic, get a USB mic. So I went to Best Buy, and the only thing they had left was this thing called Insignia. It looked cool, but it was real cheap. I thought, that's going to sound like crap. But man, it sounds awesome. Yeah. And most of the videos that we do on the behavior panel, that's what I'm using, because you don't have to be like on this thing. You can be right up on it, But, and it still sounds okay if you're, about, 8 inches away from it. But this other one, this Insignia thing, man, it sounds great no matter where you are. You can be 3 feet from it, and it sounds like you're right here. So I really like that one a lot, a whole lot. But if I'm doing something that's just audio or something, I got to make sure everything's really clean and clear. And I want to make sure I'm focusing more. I put up this Shure, the SV7. That way I know it's going to come through clean. And the only problem with the other one is if you move anything like this pen or something, not only do you hear that, you hear thump real hard if you use the other one. I thumped on with my hand on the table. Yeah. So that's the only thing about that. It's so good. It gets all the little noises. But make sure you have a good mic. That's really important.
I really love the idea too. And I've read some articles about even the psychological effect of talking to a mirror, basically, because you're talking to a video of yourself, and rather like just killing that view and just putting on the view of the person that you're speaking with. Because maybe before the call, make sure you don't have any spinach in your teeth. But after that, like, there's no, I mean, if you and I are speaking, I'm not staring at myself in a mirror behind you as we're talking. Like, it's just not realistic. So just kill that altogether. I mean, if the light's on your camera, you can assume that they can see you, and chances are they would let you know if they couldn't.
Right.
I use a Post-it note above my camera with an upside down smiley face, which, well, I mean, it's up right side up, the way the glue is on the Post-it note, but I affix it to my camera. So that way, when I'm speaking with someone, or I'm doing, I do a lot of virtual keynotes, a lot of webinars and things like that. So when I'm looking at the camera, I'm reminded constantly by that smiley face to smile and be bigger than normal, because you're speaking to a camera, but you're talking to people.
Right.
I remember I studied radio broadcasting a million years ago, and one of the tips in that setting was having like a photo of your typical listener, so if you're like a classic rock station, having some, kind of long haired classic rock looking dude posted above the microphone in the box. So that way you're looking at him probably in that scenario.
Dang, that's a good idea.
Yeah. So that way, and that way the lingo you use and the way you speak even changes because of who you're speaking with.
Oh, cool. Yeah. That's a great idea, man.
Awesome.
Great idea.
All right. Well, let me move on to the lightning round, because I want to be respectful of your time here.
All right.
So complete this sentence. Nice guys and gals finish.
A lot of times they'll finish last. I want to finish first because I like to think of myself as a nice guy. But, if you're too nice, you get squished.
Yeah. So. I like it. What's a nice book that you recommend to the nice makers listening?
Let me think. What's a good one? A good one is, really reading a bunch of Ryan Holiday stuff right now.
Yes.
There's a book called Courage is Calling. That's a good book. That's a really good one. I finished that the other day.
That's Ryan Holiday.
Courage is Calling. Yeah, he's great, man.
Yeah, he is. He is great. I just read, it was a little while ago, but it's going to be like a Christmas gift book to a lot of people, like an anonymous Christmas gift to a lot of people in my family. And it is Think Again, Adam Grant.
Is it good? I haven't read that yet.
Oh my God, it's so good. And you really want everybody in your life to read that book before, let's say, there's an election or before there's any important decisions to make. Think Again is really good. Yeah.
Okay, I got that down.
How is Scott? Sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, unless you're sending me one. Just kidding.
Yeah, if you get one, then we can talk later. How is Scott Rouse nice to himself?
Geez, and I don't have any hobbies, so there's times during the day where this sounds so, I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I like to read, but I like to read, this sounds horrible. I don't read any fiction. Yeah. I just read stuff like studies and those types of things. So when I want to relax, that's what I'll do. God, I should say something else.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, it just sounds so bad, so nerdy. But I really like reading about behavior. So every day there's something new that comes out. You can find new stuff, PDFs and all that. And I send them to my Kindle. Yeah. So you can have a thing on your Kindle where you send it to your Kindle and it'll format it just like Kindle.
Oh, yeah.
And whatever format you have. Oh, man. So you can read these studies in depth, and you can take them anywhere you want to go on your Kindle. Oh, God.
Yeah, that is huge. That is huge. And a lot of people don't realize. I didn't know that until just a number of months ago, and somebody told me about that, which is, so if you're listening and you have a Kindle, well, I hope you're listening. But yeah, with a Kindle, like Kindles give you a unique email address, and you can email an attachment, which is the PDF, and you leave nothing, not even your signature in the email, just the attached PDF. And then in the subject line, just write convert, and it magically formats it for your Kindle. Yeah, that's huge.
All right, here's another one. You ready for this? Here's another Kindle thing that's awesome. Now, when you're reading a book and you go through and you highlight stuff, do you know about this now? What I'm getting ready to say? Mm-hmm. Okay, you can highlight whatever you highlight throughout that whole book. Go to notes, and it's a send to self, and you can send yourself a PDF of all the notes you put in there.
Yes.
Then you send that PDF back to yourself on your Kindle, and you have that PDF once you dress it up the way you want to. You want to put the title of the book and something on it. You can do that before you send it, but You send it back and you've got a PDF of the notes you liked from that book.
Yeah. Yeah. Go on.
No, I was going to say, how nerdy is that? But if you're that into it, man, it makes all the difference in the world. It's the coolest thing about Kindle. You highlight the notes, then you can send them to you when you're finished, and you have a whole PDF of just those notes.
Yeah, I take the nerd factor to another level, actually. And what I do, this is something I recommend people do too, which is getting back to repetition and how repeating things will help you remember them. So one thing that I do is I take the notes from a book and then I transcribe them into a blog post. And then what I do with the blog post, well, now I'm providing value to my readers and my subscribers and things because now they're getting that blog post. But I also use that blog post to network with the author. So then I tag the author when I share the blog post and say, hey, so-and-so, I just read your book and loved it. And here are some takeaways. And then it's a good way to maybe start a conversation with that author and get on their radar and start to network that way too.
Dude, is there nobody you don't try to network with?
I should write a book about it.
You should. That should be your next book, because no matter what it is, there's always that take where you can network with anybody you're talking about. It's
true.
It's the weirdest thing. No offense, but I mean, you figured out how to network with anybody.
Well, there you go, man. You just got to do it nicely. That's the whole key thing, right? That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
All right. Last question. If you had a billboard, what would it say?
Be nice to everybody, because you don't know what they might be going through.
I love it. Scott, how can people get a hold of you and how can they learn more?
ScottRouse.com, SCOTTROUSE.com.
Awesome. Thanks, buddy. It's been fun.
Well, thanks so much, Dave. I really appreciate it. And I haven't seen you in person since I think our last gig where we did, but I can't wait to see you again.
Thanks for listening to the Nice Podcast. Theme music provided by Alistair Crystal at alistaircrystal.ca. Hey, if you enjoyed the conversation, please take a moment to leave us a review. The links are in the description. I'll have more of that soon. Did you know that new subscribers of the Nice Maker email newsletter receive a free copy of my little ebook, Improve with Improv? Each Friday, I share nice stories, tools, tips, and much more, and you can grab it now from nicemaker.co or by clicking the link in the episode description. I'm Dave Delaney. Take care and be nice.
Freelancing and online marketing often looks ideal from the outside, but what's inside? Many time-consuming challenges. SEMrush offers over 50 tools and reports to assist you in every step of your routine, from competitive and keyword research to link building and technical SEO. SEMrush is your digital team member. Let's hit it off. Grab your free trial today and see measurable results. Go to bit.ly/SEMrushMPN. That's bit.ly, bit.ly/SEMrushMPN. Content marketing, SEO, competitive research, advertising. Sounds like a large scope of work you need to get done. How about full digital marketing control over your business? SEMrush can be your right hand for that. It has over 50 tools and reports to cover any online marketing activities. No more switching from one service to another. Get a 14-day free trial and watch your business grow. Go to bit.ly/SEMrushMPN. That's bit.ly/SEMrushMPN.